the security guard said. You can't go through here. Julia Roberts said, okay, and turned around. 45 minutes later, the gala shut down. The corridor was narrow. Concrete walls. Emergency exit signs glowing red in the half-darkness. Cables taped to the floor. Equipment cases stacked against the walls. The unglamorous machinery behind a $5 million charity gala. Julia Roberts stood in her emerald evening gown, the fabric catching what little light filtered down from the harsh work lamps overhead. She held a VIP credentials pass in her right hand. Laminated. Official. Her name printed clearly across the front. The security guard, tall, broad-shouldered, earpiece visible, radio crackling on his shoulder, stood with his palm raised. Stop. I need to see proper clearance, he said. His voice carried no hostility. Just procedure. Just protocol. Julia extended the pass slightly. This is my credential. I'm one of the event chairs. He glanced at it. Barely. This doesn't have tonight's date stamp. You need to go back to check-in and get it validated. Check-in is on the other side of the building. The program starts in 4 minutes. There are people waiting. Ma'am, I don't make the rules. No current stamp, no access. She looked at him for a long moment. He didn't look back. His eyes were already scanning past her, watching the corridor, doing his job. Julia lowered the pass. She didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't say, "Do you know who I am?" She said, "Okay." And she turned around. Julia didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. Behind her, deeper in the venue, the gala was beginning. 200 of Los Angeles's wealthiest donors gathered in a ballroom draped in white silk and crystal chandeliers. A children's hospital fundraiser. 12 months of planning. Corporate sponsors. A live auction. Julia Roberts was supposed to give the opening remarks, a 3-minute speech she'd written herself about a young patient named Mia who'd spent 9 months in treatment. Julia had met Mia 4 times. Visited her in the hospital. Brought books. Sat by her bed when Mia's mother needed to sleep. Mia had asked Julia to tell her story tonight. To help other kids like her. The speech was folded in Julia's small evening clutch. Mia was somewhere in that ballroom with her family, wearing a new dress, waiting to hear her name spoken in front of all those people. And Julia was standing in a backstage corridor, blocked by a security guard who didn't know and didn't care. She walked back the way she'd come. Heels clicking on concrete. The sound echoing in the empty service hallway. 30 seconds later, she passed a young production assistant. A woman maybe 23, wearing a headset, carrying a clipboard, looking frantic. "Ms. Roberts?" The assistant's eyes went wide. "Why aren't you backstage? You're supposed to go on in 2 minutes." "Security won't let me through," Julia said calmly. "My pass doesn't have today's stamp." "But you're Julia Roberts." "He doesn't care." The assistant looked stricken. "I'll call the event coordinator." "Don't," Julia said quietly. "It's fine. But your speech, Mia's waiting." Julia stopped walking. She turned to face the young woman fully. "What's your name?" "Claire." "Claire, how long have you been doing this job?" 3 months. "Do you like it?" Claire blinked, confused by the question. Yes. Most of the time." "Even when people treat you like you're invisible?" Claire's face changed. Something vulnerable flickered across it. "That happens a lot," she admitted. Julia nodded slowly. "I know. I've seen how the coordinators talk to you. Like you don't matter. Like you're just a headset and a clipboard." Claire looked down. Didn't deny it. "That security guard," Julia continued, her voice gentle, "is doing his job. Maybe he's doing it badly. Maybe he's following rules that don't make sense. But he's doing what he was told to do. And if I make a scene, if I demand to see his supervisor, if I pull rank, what does that teach people? That you're important? That power matters more than rules." That if you're famous enough, you can ignore anyone who gets in your way. Julia shook her head. I don't want to teach that lesson. Especially not tonight. Claire stared at her. So you're just not going to give your speech? I don't know yet, Julia said honestly. But I'm not going to humiliate someone for doing their job. Even if their job is wrong right now. She started walking again. Claire followed, still holding her clipboard like a shield. They reached the main lobby. A vast space of marble and glass, elegant and cold. A few late arrivals were hurrying toward the ballroom entrance. Photographers waited by the red carpet, bored, checking their phones. Julia stood near a pillar, out of sight. Thinking. Away from the cameras, Julia made a choice no one expected. Claire's radio crackled. A voice, sharp and stressed. Where is Julia Roberts? We need her backstage now. Program is starting in 90 seconds. Claire looked at Julia, uncertain. Julia reached out and gently pushed down the radio. Tell them I'm not coming. What? Tell them I can't make it. Medical issue. Whatever you want. But I'm not doing the speech. Ms. Roberts, this is a $5 million event. You're the headliner. If you don't show, then they'll figure something else out. Claire's hands were shaking. I'll get fired. They'll blame me. Julia studied her for a moment. Then she reached into her clutch and pulled out the folded speech. 3 pages, handwritten notes in the margins. She held it out to Claire. What is this? Mia's story. Everything I was going to say. You read it. Claire's eyes went huge. I can't, I'm just a PA. You're a person who's been treated like you don't matter for 3 months. You're a person who knows what it feels like to be invisible. That makes you the right person to tell Mia's story. They won't let me on stage. Then don't go on stage. Find Mia. She's sitting in section C with her family. Give her this speech. Tell her I'm sorry I couldn't be there. Tell her. Julia's voice caught slightly. Tell her that her story matters more than any stage. And that I trust her to share it however she wants. Claire took the papers with trembling hands. You're really not going? I'm really not going. The radio crackled again. Angrier this time. Claire, we need an answer. Is she here or not? Claire looked at Julia one more time. Julia nodded. Claire lifted the radio to her lips. She's not coming. Medical issue. Last minute. Silence. Then, what? Claire lowered the radio. Her face was pale but her jaw was set. I should go find Mia. Yes, Julia said. You should. Claire started to walk away, then turned back. Why did you do this? Julia smiled, not the famous smile, the red carpet smile. Something smaller. More real. Because that security guard reminded me of something I forget sometimes. Rules matter. Not because they're always right, but because when powerful people ignore them, everyone else suffers. If I'd forced my way through, what would I have taught that young man? That he doesn't matter. That his job doesn't matter. That anyone with enough fame can make him disappear. But you're Julia Roberts. And he's a person doing his job. Those two things are equally true. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. Claire left. Julia stayed by the pillar. 10 minutes later, the gala program began without her. The event coordinator made an announcement. Unfortunately, Ms. Roberts has been delayed due to an unexpected situation. However, we're honored to have one of our youngest advocates share a very special story. Julia couldn't see the ballroom from where she stood. But she could hear, faintly, the sound of Claire's voice over the microphone. Nervous at first. Then stronger. Reading the words Julia had written. When Claire finished, the applause was long and genuine. Julia slipped out through a side exit before anyone could find her. The story should have ended there. But 30 minutes after Julia left, something happened that no one had anticipated. Mia's mother, A woman named Rebecca Torres, who worked 2 jobs to pay medical bills, approached the event coordinator's table. She was holding the handwritten speech Claire had given to Mia. "I need to know why Julia Roberts didn't speak tonight," Rebecca said. The coordinator, flustered, gave the prepared answer. "Medical issue. Very last minute. We're so sorry." "That's not true," Rebecca interrupted. "Someone told me she was here. That she was backstage. And then she left." The coordinator hesitated. "Tell me the truth," Rebecca said. Her voice wasn't angry. Just tired. The voice of someone who'd heard too many careful lies from too many people in positions of authority. "My daughter waited all night to hear Julia speak. If something happened, I deserve to know." Slowly, reluctantly, the coordinator explained. The security guard. The credential issue. Julia's refusal to make a scene. Rebecca listened in silence. When the coordinator finished, she said 4 words. "Where is that guard?" 20 minutes later, the security guard, a man named Marcus Webb, 32 years old, working his 3rd job to pay off student loans, was called to the coordinator's office. He expected to be fired. Instead, Rebecca Torres was waiting for him. And standing beside her, having returned to the venue after seeing Claire's message, was Julia Roberts. Marcus went pale. "Ma'am, I didn't know." "You did your job," Julia said before he could finish. "Exactly the way you were supposed to. But I stopped you. I didn't recognize. You followed protocol. That's what you were hired to do." Rebecca stepped forward. "Mr. Webb, I'm Mia's mother. Julia was supposed to speak tonight about my daughter. About her cancer treatment. About hope." She paused. "She didn't speak because you wouldn't let her through. And I'm here to thank you." Marcus looked like he'd been struck. "Thank me? For treating everyone the same. For not caring that she's famous. For doing your job with integrity." Rebecca's voice thickened. "Do you know how many people have treated my daughter differently because she's sick? How many strangers have pitted her? How many professionals have talked over her like she's not in the room?" Marcus shook his head, unable to speak. "You treated Julia Roberts like any other person who didn't have the right credential. You didn't give her special treatment. You didn't bend the rules. And Julia..." Rebecca looked at her. "Julia chose to honor that instead of steamrolling you. She taught my daughter something more important than any speech could. That how we treat the people no one's watching matters more than what we do when everyone's looking." Marcus's eyes were wet. "I almost got fired tonight." "You won't," Julia said quietly. "I made sure of that." She reached into her clutch and pulled out her VIP credential, the one without today's stamp. She held it out to Marcus. "Keep this. Frame it if you want. Or throw it away. But remember tonight. Remember that you did the right thing even when it would have been easier to look the other way." Marcus took the credential with shaking hands. But what followed stayed with everyone who witnessed it, forever. The story leaked, of course. These things always do. By morning, it was in the press. Julia Roberts denied entry to her own charity event. The headlines were breathless, outraged on her behalf. Social media erupted. People demanded the security guard be fired. Called him names. Threatened him. Julia released a statement within hours. "Marcus Webb did his job with integrity and professionalism. He treated me like anyone else who didn't have proper credentials, and he was right to do so. I will not tolerate any harassment of this young man who was simply following the rules he was given. If anything, he should be commended for his consistency and fairness in a world where powerful people too often expect special treatment." The harassment stopped. Mostly. The charity gala raised $4 million that night, less than projected, but still substantial. Claire, the production assistant, was offered a coordinator position. She said yes. Mia Torres went into remission 6 months later. She kept the handwritten speech Julia had given to Claire, framed above her bed. Marcus Webb still works security. He was promoted to site supervisor. The VIP credential sits on his desk, not framed, just propped against his coffee mug. A reminder. 3 years later, Julia returned to the same venue for another event. Different cause. Different gala. Marcus was working the entrance. When she approached the checkpoint, he looked at her credential, checked the date stamp, and nodded professionally. "You're all set, Ms. Roberts." She paused. "You remember me?" "I remember the night you taught me that doing the right thing matters more than making powerful people comfortable." Julia smiled. Not the red carpet smile. The real one. "You taught me the same thing." She walked through. He went back to checking credentials. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. The security credential is still on Marcus's desk. He tells new trainees the story of the night Julia Roberts was turned away and chose grace over power. And every person who hears it remembers, dignity isn't about who recognizes you. It's about recognizing yourself and how you treat everyone else.